people come from all walks of life. They all have lives they lead. Any and all are welcome here to come and chat with me.
Hi everyone, Nancy Guitar here, and with me is my guest Nina Zetchus. She's here to talk about Luna Float, right?
Sure, yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, that's really great, and I'm glad you're wanted to do it in person because it makes a really big difference, I find, right?
Yeah, I'm tired of Zoom.
yeah. I mean, it was great. It just gave us an outlet for during COVID, but now that things have relaxed a little bit. But, getting back to why you're here, I've never heard of Luna Float. What is it all about?
Sure. So, Luna Float is a float therapy, sensory deprivation wellness business. Yeah. We opened, I guess it was October 2017. We're located in Garrison Crossing, right across from the Save On Foods, kind of by the Sham Center.
Right.
So when we first opened, we just had the 4 float tanks, and they were actually manufactured in Chilliwack here. The business isn't any longer right now, but I mean, you can't get more local than that. So that was really cool. So we have 4 float tanks, or cabins, if you will. And then every year we've kind of added something. So we have an infrared sauna, which was kind of by popular demand. A lot of people were inquiring about it. So we're like, sure, let's bring it. And we have a neuro spa chair, which is kind of like, I like calling it kind of like a spaceship. It's lights, music, and acoustic vibrations, but the general, so they're all very different modalities, but kind of the same thing. You're there to rest, relax, recharge, recover, that sort of thing.
So can you explain to me exactly how it works? Like, let's just say you're in the floating tank, okay? I mean, I understand the concept of being in there, but I don't understand how it makes you relax.
Totally. So basically our cabins, you step in, so you have a shower, you step in, there's only about 11 inches of water. That water is saturated with about almost 1,100 pounds of Epsom salt. So we got 22 50-pound bags. We put in there, and so it's so saturated that you're so buoyant you can't help but float. That's why it's called floating. So I mean, only not even a foot of water, but so you can sit up. But as soon as you lean back, your feet pop up, and you can touch the bottom. But you're just kind of surprised how your bum is just like hovering above the floor, and you're floating. And so basically, the idea. I mean, you can get the physical benefits potentially just being weightless, but the true restricted environmental stimulation therapy, which is another word for it, which has an awesome acronym of REST. So often in scientific papers, they just call it REST or flotation therapy. That has all the other elements of reducing your sensory input. So, I mean, for us, we like to accommodate everyone, and it's their experience. You kind of curate that yourself. Right. So you can have music, you can have the lights on. We even have little floaty colored globes you can bring in, something tactile, and so we can customize the experience. But a lot of the papers are based on, there's no lights, there's no music. Right. The tanks are manufactured in such a way that it reduces the sound. And so that's kind of the experience. People float for lots of different reasons. So we have athletes float. It can help reduce your lactic acid buildup, so it helps with muscle recovery. We also have a lot of people who come in for chronic pain, or just general aches and pains, fibromyalgia, that sort of stuff. And then for me, I found floating for anxiety and stress, and that's kind of I end up kind of focusing on that, even though, I mean, there's a huge demographic who just come in just for some peace and quiet and just to relax, or it's a unique experience or meditation and that sort of thing. But for me, I really like learning about how it can help people relax on like a deeper level. So for me with anxiety, it can basically, you have this hypervigilance kind of thing. And with floating, it was the first time I just really kind of learned to slow down and pause, and it was hard at first, so I really do call it a practice. You have to practice at it. But it can lower your cortisol level, which is a stress hormone. And so I find sometimes you can fall asleep in the tank, but I find that night I have an amazing sleep, and it just helps kind of balance everything out. We also see a lot of people who come in who might have maybe PTSD or like depression. And with PTSD, it's interesting. There's a study quite popular about the effects of float therapy and how it's very similar or can help replace or reduce the amount of like Ativan or lorazepam that they have to take. But basically your fight or flight sense has heightened, and so it can reduce that.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, and so it seems kind of counterintuitive. I kind of joke about it, it's like, hi, you don't know me, but you're gonna get naked and go into a dark box of water. Sure, that sounds fine, right? You're already anxious, but that's... And so it does kind of seem silly, and that's why we just let people know they're in control.
Right.
You can have the door open. You can leave at any time. You're in control of your experience. But very often within the first session, you just feel safe. You feel comfortable, and you close the door. And there's just this interesting familiarity behind it. I just had a baby. 11 months ago today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I floated a lot when I was pregnant. We call it like womb inception because
that must have been nice, especially towards the end when you're feeling so heavy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, just that weightless to have all the pressure points off. I threw in some extra pool noodles. I needed a little extra support.
Right.
But yeah, so some people say it's kind of like being back in the womb. Like there's this very comfortable, safe feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you have like people say my age or seniors, do many of them like the music or they prefer the quiet? I'm just trying to figure out if there's a difference.
I'm not sure if I've like cognitively like associated like a specific demographic to it. I encourage people to do it without sound, and I often find I'm like negotiating with people. Like they're like, I want music the whole time, and I was like, how about half? Or I'll start even low, like because I like the first 15-20 minutes. For me, I don't know if it's just become more of that like kind of ritual where now like you have this certain procedure that you do and it just becomes kind of habitual. But I also find I have a very busy brain, like most people. I'm sure it's hard to just like screeching halts, just shut out everything. So for me, I like the first 15-20 minutes of music. The music we have preloaded is just like a binaural beats kind of brainwave music. And it helps distract me enough to like, it's just one less thing, I guess. It just helps ease into the process. Distracts my brain enough to like just start the process of like, disconnecting. And whereas, if you want it the whole time, I'm always like, no, try it for less. And then some people bring their own music. Some people, you still can't convince them to just take a break and they want to listen to podcasts. But floating there can induce like what they call a flow state. So there has also been studies about how it can help with either promoting creativity or even memory retention and stuff like that. So I mean it's there. It's kind of like a self-experiment, and you can play around with it however you want and get out of it whatever you want potentially.
Unfortunately, I'd probably use the music only because I have that ringing in my ears now. So when everything's quiet, that's when you experience it the most, right? So I probably would. Now, a question I have: are you one of the owners?
I am the owner. Yeah, owner and founder.
You are the owner and founder. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I said one. My mistake.
Oh, my husband's the co-owner.
Oh, there. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so what made you decide to get to do that as a business?
Sure. So a little bit, I guess my background was I worked at Van City Credit Union for about 10 years, and I worked my way up from a teller to an account manager, which basically means I did the loans, mortgages, just kind of the basic stuff. But then I started getting into financial literacy, and then that transpired into more of like the business route of things, teaching people how to write business plans and help them with cash flow projections. And then I started working with small businesses and entrepreneurs. And my husband's an entrepreneur. He co-owns Jim's Pizza in Sardis.
Oh, all right.
Plug, shout out to
for
him.
sure.
Yeah, with his good friend. And he's done other kind of side projects too. So he has that entrepreneurial spirit. And
by the way, what's his name?
My husband's name's Wayne.
Wayne, you have to be on the show.
Right. Okay, you're next.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No worries, yeah. And so I love being around entrepreneurs. They're so passionate, and I liked being the person who I could interpret and read their passion and then kind of calculate into, okay, this is what the banker wants to know if you were looking for financing. And I was kind of I bridged that gap. I also in that time was sitting on the Solid Community Futures Lending Committee, and I still sit on that committee. And in the last couple of years, since owning the business, I'm also, I'm currently the president of the Stalo Business Association.
Oh, all right. Good
So
for you.
yeah, I just really like being surrounded by entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Yeah.
And I had been at Vancity for almost 10 years. It's a super long-winded backstory, apparently. But I love working there. I felt like I'm working with all these small business owners, and I have a business degree. But what the heck do I actually know about running a business? Like, maybe I should try it. And I found I didn't even know what I really wanted to do as a business at first. Like I said, I found floating for my own stress and anxiety. I had a lot of stress-induced illnesses, and I didn't really realize as a younger person, because this was probably maybe even 10 years ago, what stress can really do to your body.
Yeah.
And until it knocked me on my butt. So I was driving all the way up to Vancouver. Like, Gastown was my first float experience. And then there was one in Langley. It's not there anymore. So I was just like, what if I just completely do something different, and instead of the busy kind of business finance world that I'm in, just try to slow things down.
Yeah.
And I loved it so much, and I was really I'm born and raised Chilliwack. I was really excited to bring it to Chilliwack. Chilliwack's never had a float center before. So I just started writing a business plan, because that's what I knew how to do.
Good, yeah.
And Chilliwack's such a small community. I started inquiring about spaces and trying to get numbers. And word actually traveled to the point where I had people telling me, oh, I heard a float center's opening up. And at first I was like, what? No. And then I realized they were talking about mine. And I was like, oh, okay. And it felt like it kind of had this life of its own.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even my idea. It just seemed like now I'm facilitating the process.
Right.
This is already meant to be, and I'm just the caretaker of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt really natural, and it felt good to do that. So, and then we live in Garrison, and then the space came available, and just everything kind of started to fall
Isn't
into
that
place.
nice? Isn't
Yeah.
that- I have to say, when I first read the name, I was thinking float like as in a parade float.
Yep. We've had people ask about parade floats. We've had people ask, look, where's the ice cream? They think it's like a Coke float or a root beer float. And I'm like, that sounds delicious, but I'm like, we don't.
That's kind of interesting, right? Now, do you have a website if somebody wants to go and check
For
it
sure.
out?
Yep. It's lunafloat.com. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's .com.
Lunafloat.com. If it's not .com, it's
It might be .ca. I know. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's one or the other, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we definitely post on Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, so they can go to you personally, to your webpage, right?
Yeah.
Or just look for Luna Float.
Exactly. Yeah, there is a Luna Float in Colorado, but that's it.
You wanted the one in
the one in Chilliwack. Yeah.
You know, you were not traveling to Colorado.
Yeah, they're lovely, but
I just find it very fascinating, you know, when somebody gets like I understand your journey to get there, which is one of the things that I love about people that I interview is their journey.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is that at that end of that journey, now here you are with a business. How long has it been?
This October will be 4 years.
Okay, so here you are, you and your husband did it, right, together, and it's taken off, and 4 years later, it's still going strong, and I think that is such a fabulous thing, you know? I think it's like Chilliwack, I didn't know there was a flotation area, am I saying this right? Place to go and float in the whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
I sometimes get terminology wrong, but people have listened to the show, so they know me. They know I do that type of thing. But I think it's interesting, you know. So now I imagine you're going to stick with that for a term.
Yeah, for sure. We're thinking of bringing another modality in as well.
Which?
Another modality, we call it just like another service, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're thinking of, so we use magnesium sulfate, but people call it salt water, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But so we're actually thinking about bringing in halotherapy, which is dry salt therapy.
Oh.
Similar to kind of like a sauna, you'd be in a booth and you'd be breathing in kind of salt air.
Okay.
I have asthma, and obviously with like the climate we're in right now, with kind of hopefully coming out on the other end of COVID, you know, and even just the air quality, right? So it'd be something that would potentially help with that. Also relaxing, but more of that therapeutic benefit as well. So we're just looking at unique kind of things that to bring to Chilliwack and help service people for any of their health and wellness kind of
I think it's awesome.
things. Yeah.
Now you have a baby. Now, at what age would a child go into those?
So floating, it's interesting. We just recently had the youngest float client. In my history, I'm not the type of person who I'm just like, I like hard black and white rules. I'm like, I just think like, there's so many nuances, and everyone's different and unique. So I typically said, in our experience, the youngest was about 9 years old.
Oh, okay.
But again, it's like, you know your kid better than anyone. So things that we would be concerned about is that concentration of Epsom salt. You don't want to get in your eyes, nose, or mouth, and grown adults often do,
Right, so
because
sure.
you forget, right? And you rub your eye, and all of a sudden that doesn't feel very good. With kids, that's going to be not a very good experience if they get that in their eyes and stuff like that. And I mean, let's face it, most kids don't want to lay down for an hour. It's an hour and a half session, right? Peacefully and quietly. No. Most, right? So that's basically the main concerns. Okay. That they want to do this, right? They're interested, they're intrigued, they want to do it, and there's gonna be some benefit to that. That being said, I would say also just the salt concentration kind of harsh on like a baby's skin, right? So 9, even the father didn't think that she would stay in the whole time, and he like kind of like knocked, and I was going in there, and she's like, go away, right? So she stayed in the whole time. The boy we had, he has childhood arthritis, and was having a lot of growing pains and stuff, and so he stayed in pretty much. Well, he got out a couple times because salt on his face and stuff, and washed it up. And that was a while ago. But just recently, we had, I think he was 4 or 5 years old. Oh, very young. Wow. And we offer tandem floating, meaning you can float together. And it's not always like couples, husband and wife. It's we had twin sisters. Right. They were, I think they were about 10 years old when they floated. They're triathlon athletes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they're just the coolest. And so they floated together. And being twins again, and being kind of like back into the womb, it was a lot of mirrored kind of. But unfortunately I wasn't there that day. But one of my employees was telling me just how cool this kid was, and they got out a couple times just to kind of like, I don't know, just get like a breather and just kind of sure. But she's like normally you can hear people are chatting and stuff, and she's like, oh no, he was very relaxed, and apparently their parents they go out for like little dates with the kid, and he's very calm and mature, and it was just a unique experience. So
now did you have to get any special training?
No, I mean, we are regulated through like the health authority and that sort of thing, but because it's kind of self-guided therapy, you're doing it yourself. I did decide that I wanted to know what I was doing. For sure. So I shadowed, I reached out to another local center in South Surrey called Salt Wellness, and they kind of gave us the lay of the land, and took us under their wing and just showed us kind of how you actually do it. Like, I knew as an end user what my experience was going into a float center, and what I liked and what I didn't like, and what I would kind of take in my own practice. But it's behind the scenes stuff that I wasn't quite sure exactly how to do that. And like I had mentioned, our tanks were manufactured here in Chilliwack, so we were very fortunate. We had that support as well. So we had them kind of explaining how the tanks work, and then we could see how to run the center.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's really good. Wow, that's so cool. But thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you coming here.
Yeah, you'll have to come for a float now.
For sure. So thank you for watching, everybody. I really hope you check it out, Luna Float, or your Facebook page is Nina Zetch.
Nina Zetchus.
Sorry, people, when I say that the mistakes are not the interviewer's fault, obviously they are.
You're actually doing way better than the majority of people.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming. And thank you for watching, and I hope you keep watching this show and like and share, and peace out, everyone.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's a place to be, you'll see.